broadcast network, AfterBuzz TV. Over 20 million weekly downloads in over 150 countries, and your number one source for after-show entertainment. AfterBuzz TV, the destination for TV superfans, producing aftershows for over 300 of your favorite TV shows, interviewing celebrities and showrunners, and bringing you behind-the-scenes exclusives. All thanks to E! Entertainment's Maria Menounos, producer Kevin Undergaro, and internet leader Akamai. Now, let the buzz begin!
Okay, welcome again, everybody, for joining us for another AfterBuzz TV after show for Call the Midwife. I'm John Comerford, joined in the studio by Tamra Berg.
Hey, everybody. It's season 5, episode 1.
Thank you very much for clarifying for those of you who don't know, and for me not saying so, because I normally do.
Yeah.
I think I was just thrown by watching this and then seeing the opening, how it opened in that scene with the leotards and the crazy music.
The bossa nova.
Yeah, exactly. And then you got the ceiling look with the weird Sputnik balls or whatever the heck it was. And, for me, because I know that we started in the 50s and now we're moving in the 60s. Last year we were in the 60s and now we're in 61. And this one really felt like, oh no, we're going to make a specific look change so that we're in the 60s. And I don't know if they were doing that specifically, but that's what it felt like to me. Did you have that feeling?
Absolutely, it felt like that to me, definitely. And, it was further echoed in we're getting new uniforms times they are a-changing.
Yeah,
things are happening. Yeah. And so I felt like, where the Christmas episode did its own things. Yeah. Now we're like in our regular, routine, and we're showing you, we're giving you an idea of where we're going this series.
And just starting out in that routine room, the keep fit.
Keep fit
where they're doing
Trixie.
Their aerobic exercises, and I was just imagining, when you go by the gym these days, if you're in New York or any big city, and you have everybody just on their bikes or sweating like crazy, punching bags, and I mean it's just
Zumba.
Yeah, the Zumba, whatever it may, Taibo, whatever the heck the latest craze is.
Taibo.
I know that's about 12 years old. Yeah. But whatever the latest craze is, they always have crazy names. And I was thinking about that, but I'm looking at this, and they're so orderly with their, and I'm going, really? Is this doing anything?
Well, because it's so not, there was no such thing as exercise before that. It was living life and doing our jobs. Yeah, because we're enough exercise.
Yeah. We haven't. That's all we have time for. We don't have leisure time to go work or work out, I should say.
Exactly.
So, but I call them cat suits, but they were in the leotards, but with the whatever the crossover top.
Yeah, I very much expected the swim. happening. Yeah.
Yeah. It was hysterical.
Funny.
And the bossa nova playing, yeah.
And
but
Trixie,
it was
Trixie, showing her leadership skills.
Yes,
I guess,
well, she's completed this course and she's completed them enough to be an instructor. And I was like, what? She's going to do that too? How does she find the time? Isn't birthing babies enough?
Yeah.
So no, but it's not. She wants to be a complete woman, and this has brought something to her life, so she's going to do this.
Yeah.
But I also thought it was interesting that they juxtaposed all that with Barbara cleaning up, and she's back doing that job and everything. I was saying that was just kind of that's right. Okay, we're not leaving this world. It's just there, and on one it's all nice and orderly. We're wearing our suit. Over here it's like, we're cleaning up. It's like, okay, thank you.
There's still jobs to be done.
Yeah.
Still jobs to be done.
Yeah, just in case you forgot.
Right, exactly. So they meet a photographer.
Yeah, well, she's out with Barbara and on the street, and after isn't she? They're in their new. You remember? First of all, let's go to the new uniforms just right away because we have the whole Phyllis. She's got her uniform. They're all explaining. She's like, no, I think this is ridiculous.
We're not fashion models.
Until she gets out into the hallway.
Oh my God! And they're all standing there, and they're like peeking in, trying to see
what's in it. But that was I did not expect that. No. I thought that was hysterical. Because
I'll race you.
Yeah, they say at some point we're all just girls and we get a package, we get some picture of clothes on. We went shopping.
Who doesn't love a new outfit?
But I never even thought about it, but I guess if you're wearing the same uniform day in and day out, I mean, my God, it would just get
drudgery.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, the nuns don't care as much, I would imagine, but I'm sure the midwives aren't thrilled with it.
Yeah.
And clearly they were with anything new.
Of course.
And one with a belt.
good heavens.
Yeah.
But be careful. You could cut yourself in half if you bend over too far.
And if
Sister
we think
Evangelina just ready to harsh our mellow.
Absolutely. And then, but if you remember the Christmas special when the BBC's Mr. Swan was talking about the uniforms, he was talking about these can't go on TV. Look, they lie so limp.
Yes.
And he goes, well, they get washed a lot because and again I was like, never even thought about that, but of course they would. But so they're going from something that looks like that they didn't want on TV, and now they're getting brand new uniforms. I mean, it's a big day.
Well, and if you remember, Jessica Raines. I've all of a sudden forgotten her character. But remember when she went to the London and had to wear Jenny Lee. She had to wear the new uniform with like the leg of mutton
puffy
sleeves, right?
Yeah, which looked ridiculous, but they were accurate. But the huge shoulder pads,
and
there
was
sleeves.
That whole thing. Yeah, so there's clearly energy on the uniforms.
Yeah, but this had some piping. It's pretty sharp.
And they came in at the waist a little bit.
Whoa.
And of all people, Trixie's going to appreciate that.
Oh, because she's lost 2 inches in the waist.
Yeah. She has not lost 2 inches from her waist because she did not have 2 inches to lose. I just want to be clear about that. But anyway, she's adorable.
They got a lot of mileage out of those leotards. They had them in a lot of scenes. So I was like, well, are they trying to... Did somebody say, hey, we need to make sure that they see us as women or something? I don't know.
Hey, guys. Heads up. You got extra time, so there's no show after you. So take your time.
Okay.
All right,
thanks.
cool.
Excellent.
So...
They meet a photographer.
Yes, they meet a photographer out of the blue, and he's taking pictures of the neighborhood. I guess he's some sort of...
I was expecting him to say he was like from National Geographic or something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, not that...
Something.
So,
but no, he's doing some... It's not an expose, but he's doing a story on the neighborhood and what it's like to live there, I guess, and,
life in the old East End before it expires, before it's gone.
Right.
Essentially.
And, Trixie, in the beginning, is having nothing of it.
She's a riot. I love her.
Until she gets the card, you go, well, this might be kind of fun.
So he shows up to the Keep Fit class.
Yes.
And is taking pictures all around. And that's lovely. And then it comes out in the newspaper.
Well, yeah, they take pictures of her when they're doing their jobs and everything, because they're doing all that posing and the nice montage that they have of all this stuff. It was just like, okay, we're going to do that. All right, we're doing that now. Yeah, it shows up in the newspaper.
Right, and Sister Evangelina is
beside herself,
horrified.
And Julienne's not too happy about it either. Not at all.
Right,
Sister
no,
Julienne.
she's not at all.
This is not
she's clearly upset because they're cavorting in their combinations.
Yeah, their combinations.
I don't even know what that means.
I don't either, but I get it. It's like, that's right, those combinations. And what did she say? It shows showing
every outline that God gave you.
Yes, exactly.
And I mean, we've seen over the life of the whole series, Trixie really kind of like she really takes a stand for things. You know, I mean, and it's usually taking a stand for the women, for the women that they care for, and we've seen that over and over again. And taking a stand for herself, she's a very decisive young woman, and she's one who is going to continue with her convictions. And I thought it was very interesting. This
because it was not only is it between the nuns and the midwives, there's that rift that's and difference that's just there, but there's also a generational thing going on there.
Yes.
So I thought that was well sussed out. I thought that was played out nicely and and legitimate, because I mean we are in the 60s and it's a generational thing.
Yeah, well, and then speaking of generational, she meets up with Olive in her. So Olive's taking the class. She's the older woman who's like the jokester.
Yes, exactly.
She's the one wearing street clothes.
Look, we're swimming.
Wearing street clothes, doing her exercises. Touch the cleavage.
Doing the windmill. And
touch the cleavage. Really? Yeah. So Olive, has an accident when she's in class, and I thought she was gonna have a heart attack. That's what it looked like to me. Because she was flushed. She was pink and flushed, and so I thought that was.
And I'm going, oh my God, she's giving somebody a heart attack doing these exercises.
Instantly, that was what I thought it was.
Until we see her in the bathroom stall, and it's like, what's going on here?
But it's far more mortifying, actually. What happens?
Please share with us.
I made you spit.
You made me spit.
I love it.
You have to share with us why you find it so mortifying, Tamra.
Well, I'd probably rather die than have that happen.
Yeah, exactly.
No, so she, like so many of these residents and patients in the East End, their health is not something that they
talk about.
Prioritize.
Not at all. It's like 25th down the list.
Yeah.
I mean, the litany of things that she describes that she knows people have done
for their down belows.
In similar situations. I'm just going, and I don't know if any of them are true, and I don't have any personal knowledge, but I'm sure that they probably, I don't know, Heidi Thomas probably is doing the research going, are you kidding? They did all this?
Yeah.
And because it's shocking.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just, that's the mortifying part for me. It was like, really? This is how bad it got that we couldn't even talk about it? She couldn't even use the word vagina because she had used down below.
She didn't know that word.
Yeah, that's the doctor word for it.
The overarching theme about this show that I have loved from the beginning and I continue to love, and for me, for some reason, it really comes out in Trixie, but it's there in all of these women, the nurses as well as the nuns. That it's about care and kindness. That's always their first priority.
For me, it's Mary Cynthia.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's
absolutely.
She's got such a heart. Yeah. So.
Don't make me talk about her. I will start to cry.
Well, that's next. We'll get to that.
So Trixie, when she's meeting Olive in the bathroom and discussing what's going on, and says, I'm putting my foot down. I insist that you come to talk to the doctor because that's what has to happen now. And then when they're in talking to the doctor, Olive is horrified.
Yes.
And it's just look, this is how it is. And then how are we going to care for you? Well, quite frankly, all that barbarism that you've been, experiencing, and the way that you've been trying to solve it yourself, we are going to help you. And the doctor says, here it is. I'm signing you up for surgery. Problem solved.
Yeah.
And
but of course, her reaction is that covered because that's one of the reasons why they don't prioritize it. It's super damn expensive.
Right.
Gee.
What is
we
that
relate
like
in America?
No, I have no idea.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Okay.
Right. And so they have this, again, this moment of what are we really here for? We are here to care for each other or to care for you.
Yeah.
And I love that.
Yeah. And so coming off of that too, with the cavorting and their combinations and showing everything outline that God gave you and everything like that, Sister Julienne brings her in. And says we need to talk. Well, even that little exchange on the stairway, we have Sister Evangelina,
Trixie,
Julienne coming down the stairs, Trixie going up the stairs, and it's like, well, just the way it was choreographed was nicely blocked and everything. I would like to see you in my office at 9.
I'm engaged.
I'll see you at 9:30. I'm going. There you go. We're just keeping the conflict going, and even that little exchange, I'm going, whoa. Right. She normally doesn't do that.
Right, because she's pushing a boundary.
And she's experiencing something else, but she's growing as an individual, and she's testing those boundaries and maybe testing them inappropriately. It's like, why you
don't need to mouth off to the mother superior.
Exactly, you didn't need to do it that way. But she's testing those boundaries because she's feeling more of herself because she's A, not drinking, B, she's getting fit. And those things are creating some awareness in her that you didn't have before, which is great to see because you want that as a viewer anyway. I want to see that. I want to see that in my characters. I want to see them grow. I want to see them change, evolve, and see how they handle new situations from that new perspective, which I'm really excited about.
Yeah, so interesting that in the very early on in the episode, we learn that Trixie's not drinking because it's bad for her complexion. And then, and then she says in this meeting with Sister Julienne, here's the deal. I'm not like
this one or the last one. Doesn't matter. We learned it. She's not drinking. I didn't know if we learned it. Oh,
it might be the last. It might have been the last one. But no, it's not that I'm going to a little class. It's not my little hobby.
Yeah.
It's Alcoholics Anonymous, and I am not ashamed of it.
I'm not afraid to say it.
Yeah, exactly. Really standing up for herself.
Yeah.
And then, as I was saying before, standing up for women, because in addition to coming into her own, she
wants to bring others with her.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I thought that was interesting too, because again, going back to that scene with Sister Julienne and Trixie, when she's, Sister Julienne saying, "No, look, this is not how we do things, and you have to understand, we're nuns, and and they have that exchange too about, well, yes, but we're different because we're midwives. Well, no, we do the same job. I mean, it was just well written because I could see both arguments.
Absolutely.
And go, yeah, you could argue it either way.
Absolutely.
But it was interesting that Sister Julienne was apologizing. she said, "I know, I'm sorry," because I think she saw some. Well, and she always sees things faster than most people anyway.
Right.
But I thought they were going to carry that argument a little bit longer, because normally you would start that argument, you resolve it later in the scene, or not later in the scene, but later in the show.
Right.
And it was kind of resolved a little early.
Not within this episode.
Yeah.
Not within one episode.
Not within one scene. Usually it's you start it and then you'll finish it later, or you'll move it down the line, and But it was interesting that happened so quickly.
There is enough conflict in other places. In this episode, I think.
Yeah.
But the cap to that with the lunch at the end, or dinner at the end, which we'll talk about again later, but where Sister Julienne says, "We cherish our young women, and without them we would flounder."
Mm-hmm. And the truth of the matter is that's right, except the flip side is true. The youth need to see the experience and the wisdom of the elderly, and what, because you can't see around corners, and if you have mentors or you have people that have seen that, so you can avoid so much and learn so much if you listen.
There is value in experience. Yeah, for sure.
Even from a nun,
right,
who hasn't gone through certain things.
Doesn't have a lot of experience.
Exactly.
But beautiful. And I didn't expect it to. I was expecting Trixie to walk into Sister Julienne's office and get fired.
I know, that's what it felt like. That's what it sounded like. I'm sorry. When she said I'm sorry, I'm going, oh my God, she's saying I'm sorry. I'm going to let you go.
I have to let you go. Right.
But no, it's an apology. Wow. I just was not expecting it so quickly. But I did feel like she was just going to let her go, because we can't resolve this between us.
Yeah. Right. It's an irreconcilable scenario.
Yeah. So.
It really touched me, though. Yeah. Yeah.
It's always good to see when Trixie, stands up like that and fights. Yeah. But and what she was saying, how she was fighting for others and how she was fighting for herself and stuff. That's the, when you think about Trixie, because, she can be a little self-absorbed, but there is that saving grace, which she'll fight as vehemently for others as she will for herself.
Yes. So
that's good.
I wholeheartedly agree with you. Mm-hmm. And I know you can see me tearing up because I'm just thinking about it. Her arguments were so sound, and I was just reliving in my head where she was talking about how these things saved her.
Yes, and she does feel saved. I mean, because
that's what's making me too.
She's had a difficult road, and we were going to talk about it later, but let's talk about it right now. Just the other part of that adds so much depth to that is when she sees how Tom and Barbara are getting along and getting close, and you just had those quick, very small little reaction shots of how Trixie's seeing that progress, and there's so much there. I mean, I know I'm infusing it with a lot of emotion, because is there regret? Is there longing, jealousy, all that stuff? And it's just a reaction.
Yes.
We don't really know how she's thinking, what she's thinking or feeling about it. I'm putting in I'm endowing it with all kinds of stuff. But did you enjoy those reactions? Because I thought, we're going to get into some stuff there.
Very well played. And the thing that I was thinking was, because we now have this information that she's not just not drinking, she's, working on that. And so is part of her motivation not to get Tom back, but, is part of her reasoning for doing that I will be a more grounded, balanced person, this new person that I'm becoming, and be therefore worthy of having a relationship with him. Because it was difficult, their breakup. It was extremely difficult.
She wanted different things than he wanted and stuff like that. I don't think she would go back, but I do think the jealousy thing is going to hit her.
Do you?
Yeah, because it's your coworker that's falling for a guy that you dated and was engaged to, for crying out loud. So.
I feel like for me, it would be more regret than jealousy.
Well, it's really hard to untwine those.
Yeah, I suppose. So. I would like to predict that some of you know what I'm talking about. That will definitely. I mean, it's going to move further, because they're in the coming ups. We saw a little bit of.
Did we? I didn't.
Yeah,
okay.
A little bit. Of, whatever. You didn't see them.
What? I didn't.
Yeah. So. Interesting, but I love the Trixie character. It's been so fascinating to watch her entire progression. And from being kind of a silly little girl to being the Spitfire advocate.
And they still dabble in it, because every once in a while, Last Christmas she was talking about makeup, and it's like, when you this.
Just a little layer of pancake.
So they dabble in that because you don't change completely and stuff like that. So, but they do. But you are seeing a maturity there and self-assurance that you wouldn't see in prior seasons.
Earlier versions of Trixie. Yeah.
So that's good to see.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the storyline that you don't really want to talk about. I mean, we do want to talk because it's amazing. They handled it extremely well. It's
God, I just
tragic.
gotta get my Kleenex right close.
It's just tragic, and this is Rhoda.
Mullix, Mrs.
Rhoda,
Mullix.
Yeah, and her husband, of course, and they're expecting a child, and they already have 2 kids, and Perry's running around with the Sputnik helmet on with the CCCP.
So cute.
yeah.
Okay, first of all, reminding me of, this is a way back thing, and not everyone will hear it, or know it, but that George Clooney ER episode with a couple coming into it won an Emmy, it won all kinds of Emmys. This, coming into the hospital, very happy, very silly, very like, this is going to be awesome. We're having a baby. And that this sort of reminded me of that with this, very upbeat. Thank you. Upbeat couple who clearly loved each other and, kissing and talking about what's coming next.
Let's be grateful for what we've got, not for what we don't have.
Thank you.
Like, ooh.
We already have 2 great kids. Of course, this one, which was a bit of a surprise. Well, it was a complete surprise, apparently, for him anyway. That, this is going to be great.
And of course, not so great. You okay? All right. Because, I mean, we could just talk about the fact that the baby's born and it's
limbless.
I think is how they. And I forgot let me, if I can find if you give me a check, and I'll find the exact way they described it. But it's called Focamelia, I think is how they pronounce it. I'm not positive. I didn't look it up. I didn't have time. Seal-limbed, and it suffers from the effects of thalidomide.
Yeah.
So,
but they don't know that.
They don't know that yet. But that we because we have the hindsight. Not hindsight. We have we're living today,
history,
so we know what it is or what's occurred there.
So the birth was so painful to watch, with with Sheila. Was it Sheila? No, it wasn't Sheila. Who delivered the baby? Can't remember. And it was Sheila who was receiving the baby and
Cynthia, wasn't it?
But can you go clean up the baby?
Oh, no, it's Patsy and Sheila.
Thank you. That's it. Patsy and Sheila. So Patsy sees what's going on, puts the baby over.
Could you give her a rub?
Yeah.
And then Sheila gives her a rub, and then she decides she needs to take her.
And from the very beginning, everyone, including the doctor, assume that this baby's going to die right away.
Because they figure it's because it's deformed on the inside, it is on the outside, as they say.
Right. So exactly.
They don't expect it to live.
Yeah. And Dr. Turner and Sheila talk about the condition of this baby, that the survival is not likely. And then they discover that the baby's not failing. Right. And
then there's that whole thing about Sheila getting in Doc Turner. Don't get involved. There's nothing we can do. You need to. And then, of course, Doc Turner gets all involved. All up in that involvement.
When it's so beautiful how he does. He's putting his finger in the baby's mouth and going, well, it's clear what you want.
Yeah. So, which means this baby wants to survive,
wants to live.
So, clearly it's not going to die.
So all this time is going by, and
they're not showing the child to Rhoda, excuse me.
Yeah.
And Rhoda's kind of completely getting more and more suspicious by it and everything. And then when Mary Cynthia says, calls her by her first name, she goes, wait, why are you calling me by first name? That's way too kind, even for you guys. You're kind, like there's something wrong. And then there's the cigarette, and then so they juxtapose when Sheila's going to tell Rhoda, and when the dad's there and he hears the baby crying, and
with the daffodils,
cut back, intercut that, the thing is, his response, or at least you assume his response, is just not going to be the most gracious that you would imagine.
No. That's, the first thing that people say when a baby is born. Yeah. 10 fingers, 10 toes, Yeah. And so
it's the shock of it, and just the what did we do wrong? I mean, whatever's going through his head, all he can do is.
And he calls the baby that thing,
and later on calls her a monster. Yeah, and wasn't uncommon. I'm not saying it happened all the time. I don't know that, but the very little I know of the situation, it wasn't uncommon for people to freak out because it's just not the thing you can ever imagine wanting for your child.
Yeah.
And how do you process that? So I thought it came across as tragic, extremely dramatic, and horrifying, and just gut-wrenching.
When I think it was when they brought the baby in to show her to her mother. And what I write before this happens, or as this was happening, was kindness, because that was, you actually talked about it in the Christmas episode.
Yeah.
If there's ever a moment when someone is going to receive life-changing,
horrible,
tragic news,
yeah.
I want one of the midwives to tell me,
yeah.
If that ever happens to me, God forbid it ever happens to me, because they just, it's just this enormous amount of empathy and compassion and kindness that comes out of them when they are doing their job at all times.
Yeah.
It's always the paramount vision lens through which they view the world.
And they're at their best when things are worst.
Yeah.
And you need that. You want that. And
Yeah.
it's the only saving grace in all of this.
Yeah.
And I thought they handled it so beautifully in the way Sheila handled, gave her a cigarette, which is odd, but she was looking around for the cigarettes. I'm going, what is she? She's smoking? No, she's she's going to take them into her.
At first I thought she was looking for an injection to calm her down. Some sort of sedative.
Then it was the cigarette, and it was just, okay.
Which I guess is a sedative in its own way.
Exactly,
yeah.
and create some, bonding, something.
So Rhoda gets the baby.
Yeah, and I'm just going, oh, please don't have it the same reaction as Dad did.
And she says, you're mine, and I'm not abandoning you.
Yeah. And how'd you do there? How many tissues was that?
It was a couple.
That was a couple?
It was a couple.
Yeah.
And so Rhoda talks about how she gave her other children very complicated names. Extraordinary names. But I'm going to call her Susan so she won't have to explain it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And just even that, I was just going, man, just amazing forethought. So.
Right. And so then the next step is we need to take Susan to the hospital because she needs to have some tests. Well, Mama Tiger comes out in Rhoda. No, you're not taking her anywhere. You're not taking her. You're not shutting her in a corner. You're not going to marginalize her. Her name is Susan.
Yeah.
She's not baby whatever. She's Susan.
Yeah, and with all that, she still is saying that she can't take her home because he won't let her in the house. And I'm going, as staunch as she is in her support for her child, she still knows I can't take her home. I have nowhere to take her.
She literally says, we can't go home.
Yeah, so what is she going to do? And then they have that conversation between Mary Cynthia and Winifred. I was just... Again, because you had asked, or you had pointed out that Trixie does a few of Mary Cynthia, and that when she was talking about what are they going to do, where are they going to take her, and she's talking about her own brother and water on the brain, and just going
hydrocephalus.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's the beginning of them putting together why this is happening, because they do talk about the baby who was born without thumbs.
Right.
And that they're
Winifred is going, maybe it's something in the air,
or the places where they're working, So Cynthia goes to talk to Mr. Mullix about,
accepting the child.
Yeah, that monster isn't coming in, and she's still persuading through this very, calm method that she has, but it will be so much harder if this family is pulled apart.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Because
either way you go, whatever choice you make is going to be horrible. You're going to have a child,
it's going to be a very hard
you're
road.
going to have a difficult life, or it could be presumably a difficult life, or it's going to be difficult because you gave the child away and you have to deal with those consequences.
Yeah.
Well, either way, it's going to be challenging, but at least one way can preserve the family.
Right. And so then we're seeing Rhoda and Cynthia trying to dress Susan.
Yeah, the whole thing about finding clothes that fit and nappies and...
Yeah, because it's a whole other deal.
And just the day-to-day thing of that. It seems like such a silly thing. Like, we got to find that. And you're going, wow, just that. You can't have nappies. And then the clothes and how do you do... And it's just, wow, it just starts... from there and just until forever.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But they found a way. They got it, and they got the clothes. You're saying they're not good enough because they're used. Yeah.
They have a sewing bee.
Yeah.
Because they've got the other thing going on, which is the Easter
parade,
and you have to have Easter bonnets, and
together.
Everybody, a community coming together again. So they make her things, and she's quite beautiful. When they talked about in the very end.
The voiceover.
Thank you. The voiceover and how they could only bundle her for so long,
because,
and that
she didn't grow that.
Yeah, and it ended up being a hard life, and but they dealt with it because sometimes in life you get to be grateful for what you've got, not for what you've not got.
Yeah, and that was a great scene with the family all there, and the children looking at Susan, the little baby. And wanting to touch her, and then the son Perry wanted, and Dad says, no, you don't be too rough, and he finally comes around, and it just took him a while, and that's often, again, I thought that was wonderfully done, because you kept hold it back, hold it, don't do it, don't turn,
yeah,
so that it's just way more dramatic that way, and then he finally turns, and it's huge, but it's a small one too, because who knows how he's not really resolved to all this by any means, but okay, I'm going to be with you on this. We're going to be together on this.
We'll manage,
which was terrific. And then to call back the whole thing about let's be grateful for what we have and not what we don't have.
I thought that scene was just extraordinary because you got to see the children, for the most part, especially when they're that young, they're just accepting. Parents lead the way, and the kids figure out how to make it work. And it's terrible conflict for everyone to go through. But as I think it was Cynthia said, your wife loves your baby, and I know you love your wife.
Yeah.
And so we have to figure it out. Yeah. We have to manage. It was heartbreaking and devastating.
And kudos to the prop or doll makers.
Well, yeah, let me talk about that. Sure. So this episode is dedicated to the memory of a baby boy who was in the cradle next to the show creators Heidi Thomas when they were born within hours of each other in Liverpool maternity home. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
She says, I was born in 1962, and that's the generation of the Thalidomide children. I had a schoolmate who didn't have one limb. And I remember...
Because of thalidomide?
Mm-hmm. He was, I was talking to my mom, and she said, well, he's a thalidomide baby. Oh. And that was how I always knew it my whole life.
And that's the term they use.
So Heidi Thomas says, this is the biggest historical story we've ever told on the show. And Terry Coates, the midwife's advisor and the lady who inspired the Call the Midwife originator Jennifer Worth to write her memoirs, they looked at the medical presses, and there was always conversation that should they get to 1961, that it would be part of the series. But interesting, it was only at the end of 1961 that scientists realized that there was a link between thalidomide and these babies who had limb problems. When an Australian doctor, William McBride, published a letter in the medical journal The Lancet, the newspaper that Dr. Turner was reading from, linking the drug to the birth defects. And the other interesting thing about it is that 50 years later, the series is the first drama, actually, to tackle the problem. It's not just history. It's still going on, says Heidi Thomas. She says, we're telling the stories of people who've never had a voice. And there have been excellent documentaries, but it's never been covered in in dramas. Yeah. Right. And part of what they said was it was probably technically too difficult, but because they have these amazing prosthetic babies and computer-generated images, they can recreate the events with detail that just wasn't available before. And so that speaks to what you're talking about.
It was. I mean, just stepping outside of it, just looking at it from the craft of it, I'm going, wow, that's great prosthetics. I mean, amazing puppetry, CGs, whatever. I'm sure they're probably using a little bit of everything.
Right.
But, when it was first happening, I was first watching it, I didn't even look at it technically because it was just, I was engrossed in the show, engrossed in the story, and then it was there, and it was like, wow.
Right.
And I haven't seen that many babies that suffer from that. So that was shocking. But then the next few times I was looking at it just from a technical point of view, going, wow, that's incredible how they life like that. I mean, it just looked amazing.
Yeah, it really did. It really did. There are a few stories in the Daily Mail, if you guys want to look for them, about this subject of that they've dealt with on Call the Midwife. And, you know, it's going to continue because we've only just started the subject.
Started the one, so they'll probably carry this through because there's 61.
Yeah,
1961 here. They're going to see more of this.
Yeah,
I think you're right, because when Mary Cynthia and Winifred were talking about it, they're just thinking about positing what could it be from and how to
environmental issues.
Exactly. So they're going to carry that through. I think that'll be interesting. And Doctor, of course, is on top of this, reading Lancet, so I'm sure he's going to keep on it as well.
Yeah, I felt like the. Because we saw it in the last episode of last season, starting with them administering thalidomide to, and because I am of the age of being able to know this, you know, when these women were coming in, these pregnant women were coming in with the terrible morning sickness, and they gave them the pill and
gave them thalidomide pill.
But they gave them the pill. We didn't know what it was. It was just this miraculous drug that had, you know, because the women who were getting it had debilitating morning sickness. And so when they took the pill in the earlier episodes and or in the last season and were miraculously well, that like hit me like a cold.
They're laying that in already.
Like a cold blanket. I just went. And I think you didn't know.
No, I didn't know.
And then I just went.
Yeah.
So I just it's such a difficult, sad, upsetting storyline, and I'm so glad that they're covering it because it's so important. Because people like Marissa probably has never even heard of it. Hi, Marissa. And so it's, you know, it's just a completely different and it's part of what, you know, all these things, all drugs, you know, do not take if pregnant, do not take if pregnant, do not take it, because a lot
these kinds of things
of this. But I thought it was in typical Call the Midwife fashion, beautifully addressed.
Very.
And it will continue to be.
Sensitively and artfully. And truthfully. All right, so, let's move on to Patsy and Delia, because we got to see more of that storyline. So, you know, Delia has decided that she wants to stay and work and move back into London. And
right. Well, first off, she's got the spotless bill of health, which is the beginning, you know, the beginning of her being able to reclaim her life. And so she can get her job back. But her mom says, I don't want her coming back to London.
And she's got a great argument. It's like, no, you almost died, and we're not going to do that again.
And she's her mother.
I know, it's her mother, and of course. But Patsy's like, you're 20, was it, she said you're 23, 26, whatever, I can't remember how old she was. I don't remember. But, however old she is, you can live your own life, but you can't do it to her mom. She can't put her parents through it.
Right.
Because they almost lost a daughter.
Right.
And I just gone,
So what she ends up doing is breaking up with Patsy over the phone.
Pretty much, Pretty much.
I'm leaving London because my mama says
that's right. But hey, can we at least have lunch together? Come over for Easter lunch or whatever it is.
Okay, and the one lunch. No, it's okay. We I mean, it's not, you know, but yeah, it's the continue. Just I was going to talk about how Patsy was all.
Oh, yeah, let's say that. Yeah, it was that she was all dolled up. She looked great. She looked
beautiful.
Yeah.
Showing a little cleavage too, because apparently those exercises were working. Keep fit exercises are working. Right. So then they have the luncheon at Nonnatus House.
Yeah, and Mom's there and everything.
Easter luncheon.
And you know, and they ask her, what are you going to do? No, I'm going to go back home because there's no place to, to stay.
Right, but I don't think this was calculated. Do you? No, I mean, because it was merely, we're going to go.
No, we're going to have a luncheon together. We're going to have lunch. Everybody be happy to see you.
Right.
Yeah, and I didn't expect Sister Julienne to say, but except at the luncheon, only when she started saying, well, there's no place. I'm going, why didn't she just stay there? And Julienne says, you could stay here. And I'm going, what? No, this can't happen. This is going to be, this could be all kinds of bad.
Well, yeah, only because it's, right, like it's the social issues and the,
the mores of the time. And what are you going to do? The both of them are going to live there, and then what? Are they going to carry on as girlfriends and at Nonnatus House. I mean, that just creates. I go, okay, let's stir up this hornet's nest.
I don't want it. I don't want the conflict. Can't they just live in their apartment and be happy together? Because that's what I want. No. But I loved that the setting turned out to be the perfect place for this conversation to happen because Delia's mother, because Delia was like, I'll come to lunch, but I can't leave Mom. So Mom's going to be there. We're all sitting at the table. It's a proper meal with a lot of proper people. And while, like you said, I understand Mom's objections.
But when the
Mother Superior,
so to speak, whatever, I'm not exactly sure what her title is, but let's just say it's Mother Superior. When she invites that, and why do you say no to that?
No, you can't.
Yeah, exactly.
That's exactly where I was going with that.
That's a tough one to say no to.
Yeah.
No, thanks, but no thanks. No, we can't do that.
Right.
I don't trust her here. Oops, can't say that.
So, predictions for you with regard to what's going to happen?
Now,
thank you.
Your AfterBuzz TV predictions.
Well, I think they're going to stir the hornet's nest. I think they're going to, if they're really going to live in close proximity, they're going to want to be with each other in some fashion. And someone's going to see it.
Yeah.
So, and that's going to create all kinds of conflict and drama, which is great. I mean, that's because why not?
It's not. I don't like it.
Well, it doesn't necessarily have to create
I'm joking.
some
Of course, the conflict is what makes the drama and the,
But, I get it. You don't want some crazy tragedy.
No, I don't. I've had enough of that with all of my other shows. With, with Downton Abbey.
But they'll handle it as delicately as they handle everything else, I would think.
Of course they will, because it's called a midwife.
Yeah.
I just don't
I don't
want them to be sad. I don't want anybody to be persecuted. I want everyone to be happy. Can't we all just be happy? Please. No, right. I mean, we're setting up, and Heidi Thomas talked about in her comments, I think this is the best season that we have. And the thing is that I love this show because I trust it. I know that they are always going to stab me in the gut with something. Yeah. And by the end, I will feel in some way resolved. Yeah. And and it won't be tied up with a bow, because it's still gonna be. I mean, like this one, the baby. They've kept the baby. I'm going, thank God the dad turned it around and kept the baby. But I'm still going, oh my God, they have to care for this child. They have to figure it out and make this family still work and be there for all of their lives.
Exactly. I go, that's not tied up in a neat little bow.
And Cynthia talking about how her brother, affected her life forever. And she said he's been gone a long time. Yeah. He died a long time ago, and it's still a very powerful thing for her. So there are still, there are repercussions to all of this. The beginning and the end monologue by Vanessa Redgrave about the female body is a complex thing on this one. And then the end was, as she was talking about how the future for this whole family and for so many people is heart-wrenching. And
as always, I mean, because that's what they're good at. That's their wheelhouse. So I think it's gonna play out like that. Someone's gonna see something. It's gonna be a huge. It won't be a scandal, but it'll be this. Oh my God, what do we do? And they'll have to figure out some way, and they'll have to deal with. And they'll figure out a way to deal with it with dignity and kindness.
And compassion.
Yeah, exactly. And thank God, because it's a wonderful example for the rest of us.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree.
And then I also think that we're going to see Tom and Barbara get closer. Even if they don't become an item, it's going to have its effect on Trixie, because they may not end up actually being an item, as I mentioned, but it's going to look that way to Trixie, and that's going to create some sort of havoc for her. Yeah. Because here she is, becoming this new person, having to removing alcohol from her life, all that kind of stuff, and then somebody else gets this guy that so I think that's just going to play on her confidence and all kinds of other things.
And it'll challenge her choices as well. Mm-hmm. Yeah, her choice of not marrying him, and her choices of stopping drinking, and all kinds of things.
She'll second guess it and all that stuff, but that's good. I'm looking forward to that.
Absolutely.
But what they also set up in this episode, as I was mentioning earlier, is the generational thing, and how that's going to play out with so far, I mean, easily handled by Sister Julienne, but I think they're going to continue that because, I mean, it is the 60s, because there's that generational gap and everything like that. So I want to see that. So I want to know how they're going to play that out.
I agree.
And I hope it gets nice and sticky.
I agree. I mostly agree. But we have 7 more episodes to find out how it's going to go. We didn't talk about Marissa and Courtney, did we? Our Marissa and our Courtney, who will be joining us. Some of you who have jumped over from our Downton Abbey podcasts, Courtney will be joining us. Courtney Stewart will be joining us on our podcast in the future. And we also have Marissa Serafini, who's going to be joining us as well.
All right. Any last thoughts about this before we head on out?
No, I loved it. I'm happy. It's hard, and I understand that's how life
it's like
is,
every time you watch, you probably are so excited. You're like, oh my God, I'm going to cry like crazy. They're going to gut me. Yeah. But you come away going, oh, that was amazing. Oh.
Yeah, it's kind of like life, only, it's a little, there's more cake.
Yeah.
And eclairs.
That was great, too.
Breaking Lent with eclair. I'm not breaking Lent. We didn't break Lent. She had bread.
Exactly. Oh, yeah, that was one thing that we didn't talk about. Well, we talked a lot about Monica last episode, so we can move on from her. We'll talk about it next week.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Thank you very much for tuning in.
Hey, you can find me on Twitter at Tamra Berg. Also, my website is tamaraessential.com.
I was going to get to that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I wouldn't have left you hanging like that.
Okay, thanks.
Tammy, where can they find you again? I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
At Tamra Berg on Twitter, and tamaraessential.com is my website. Thanks.
All right, you can find me here next week when we'll talk to you again about Called Midwife.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.